Good evening, Big Brother Hometowns Viewing Lounge. It is finale night after, what is this, day 30? My God, after 30 days in the Big Brother Hometowns house, 3 house guests remain. We started with 16, 13 are gone. We're down to our final 3, and one of them will walk away tonight with the BBH 14 crown and $200 for their charity of choice. The finale starts in exactly 15 minutes, and we're going to go through the final 3, wrap up their games as kind of a brief summary because the jury questions are just not going to cover everything. So I want to give you a brief summary of what each player has done in this game so you have kind of, some expectations and who you want to root for tonight because only 2 of them will get to plead their case, and they just won't get to say everything that they want. So let's start with Ryan. Ryan R.T. Taylor has been the comp beast of this series. Of this season and of this series. Early on, he didn't need it. He started off very strong socially, building bonds, not only utilizing the pre-connections he came into the game with, but also building bonds with those who he did not know, and really took advantage of that because a lot of the players in this game chose to rely on their pre-game connections rather than giving people like Lance, Jack, and Julia the time of day. He really does that well. Despite wanting to play an under-the-radar strategy early, he finds himself in power in round 2, becoming the HOH, and ultimately having to take out his Gleek Alliance member in Julia due to just her inactivity, and the house pretty much would have been really upset if she didn't go home. After that, Ryan is able to kind of slip into the background for the next 3 rounds of the pre-jury and really ride out those strong bonds he had. Work got a little busy, so he wasn't as present, but the work he did in the first 2 rounds to really build solid relationships really help him in this kind of beginning part of his game where work schedule was kind of getting in the way and it was kind of unknown of what he would be doing strategically or socially if someone who he wasn't close with or whatnot ran into power. Ultimately, he finds himself in a great position nonetheless when right before the pre-jury, he does win another veto to secure himself into the jury phase of the game. And once we hit to the jury phase, comp beast Ryan has turned out. He has won a competition every round since the top 10. Currently coming into tonight, he has 9 competition wins. If he is to win the final HOH tonight, he will leave with 10 comp wins, the most of all time, most in any season. He already has the record for vetoes in the season, so quite literally, a lot of records for him on the line tonight. But ultimately, that's not, as much as his physical gameplay is his shining star in this game, it's not, the only thing that defines him. He has some great strategy in being able to really rally some of the underdogs that were outside of this Final 5 Besties Alliance. He did really make, he made him good with Jack and Daniel, Courtney for a little bit, and ultimately he really rallies behind kind of people on the outs and really tells them the truth on their way out and really gives them information that they can feel good about as they head to the jury house. While the jury, if you haven't watched the roundtable, I fully recommend you do that in the next 12 minutes or at least watch it after the season. The jury is very low on his game. I think everyone realizes that, his social and strategic side really was high at the beginning and kind of faded as the jury game began. But ultimately, it was a position he put himself in, and he was unable to really have any sway in that jury phase, and he did exactly what he needed to do to still be here, win. So, self-awareness, very key for Ryan, but he knew exactly what he needed to do, and he did it. And he's here at the final 3 with a very high likelihood of sitting in one of those final 2 spots. So we'll see what the jury has to say and how Ryan is going to defend his game. What you should be watching out for tonight is how does he explain his social gameplay and his strategic gameplay when really he didn't have a ton of power in who was going home in the jury phase. He didn't really have a ton of knowledge as to what was going on. But he ruined a lot of plans. He ruined a lot of alliances by continuously winning. And there's a lot to be said for that. So definitely the thing he will have to push the most tonight is how can people look past that. So look for that. Now let's talk to our other 2 ladies who have really played this game hand in hand and have very similar games up until the end game. And that is Angelica and Erica, 2 fabulous game players. starting off early, they bonded very quickly. Were a duo from pretty much day one and have been working hand in hand since the game basically said go. They basically share a bunch of alliances. They started off just really being the social queens of the season, really talking with everybody and getting everyone in good with them. Good with Robert. They were in good with Courtney. They had Hocus Pocus with Courtney. They were good with AJ. They had Hello, Hi, How Are You with AJ. I'm forgetting all the alliances that they're in. They were in Men Are Trash with Danielle, Robert, and Courtney. They just had so many alliances. And even the people that they weren't aligned with, people liked them. Despite not being in alliance, Jack liked them. Daniel liked them. Truly, anybody who wasn't that super tied to them went out pre-jury. The only person that went out pre-jury that was kind of aligned with Erica and Angelica would be the fellow meatball in Nikki. Nikki ultimately goes out just due to an unfortunate renom against her. But probably could have stayed against other people had they been put up. Angelica and Erica really dominate the pre-jury portion of this game without people really realizing it. They pushed their agendas, they pushed their initiatives, and the people that weren't close with them went up on the block and they went out. When Abby, Tommy, and Daniel put themselves as major targets in the house, they pushed that and made sure that they constantly saw the block and constantly were the backdoor targets for every HOH in the pre-jury phase. Once we hit the jury, this is where they kind of lose a little bit of power here, to be completely frank. AJ and Danielle find themselves in the best positions in the house, riding kind of between everybody and really holding together. Angelica, Erica, Lance, like kind of that group that ultimately dominates the jury portion of this game is that five-some. Ultimately, Angelica and Erica are still part of it, but they have to be adaptable. AJ and Danielle really have all the cards here. They have all the information, and they're the ones that are winning the competitions, driving the initiatives, able to convince the people who are winning comps outside of their realm to do what is best for them, able to convince Jabbar to do things. Daniel, Jack, those people that really had those early HOHs in the jury phase to keep Angelica and Erica in a position where they could be safe. But ultimately, adaptability is what serves them best. Their adaptability, their ability to manage their threat level is what allows them both to be here at the end game. Because they were, less threatening than people like AJ, Danielle, and they're able to kind of slip through the cracks of, the Revengers and the final five besties and really survive the slaughter that they have to turn on each other because Ryan R.T. Taylor keeps winning. But ultimately, their gameplay very, very similar coming into the end game, playing together, voting the same way, having the same thoughts, having the same allies. Very, very similar gameplay. Coming to the end game, Erica had an HOH win at the double at top 8. Angelica didn't have anything until Angelica ultimately wins at top 5 and giving her win. And Erica really has gone on a run, near the end. But let's talk about Angelica's end game first. Angelica plays masterfully this top 6, top 5, top 4 rounds. I mean, fantastic. She finds herself as a final nominee at the top 6 next to Lance after Ryan wins the Stairfold veto and is able to use her social capital with Danielle, who ends up convincing AJ and Erica to save Angelica over Lance, who, Lance wanted to bring AJ to the final 2 and Erica wanted to bring Lance to the final 2 and ultimately gets AJ and Erica to vote probably against their better interests in the sense of who they want to sit next to at the end. Angelica is able to pull that off at 6. She wins her first competition of the season, but I think her first individual competition win in her org career here at top 5 to win the HOH. Ryan being the target, Ryan again comes on top with the veto, and she's able to convince Erica to be the tie vote against AJ to send AJ out of the house, despite obviously AJ would have brought Erica to the end. And Erica wanted to sit next to AJ. Again, Angelica able to really hammer home some great points, some great strategy as to why AJ has to go over someone like Danielle. Very valid points, but also just a better move for Angelica than it was for Erica. Ultimately, it does work out for Erica in the end, but definitely I give all the credit to Angelica here. And ultimately, her saving Danielle pays off in dividends as Danielle is evicted at the Final Four because she is the bigger threat to win the game, not only in competitions, but also the jury was absolutely enamored with her. So Angelica really pulls off everything she needs to in those final couple rounds. Here she comes into Final 3 and is unable to win part 1 and is unable to win part 2. And I mean, to be completely frank, she is on the outside looking in, praying that either Ryan or Erica changes their minds tonight and will bring her. Ryan and Erica absolutely have the right reads here that the jury favors Angelica. They do. The jury is ready to vote for Angelica at the end of this game if she's able to sit there. The issue is I don't think either of them is going to bring her. I think Angelica knows it. So I don't suspect seeing Angelica here in this end game. I think she will go home out here in third place, but she is a key character to watch tonight because when we get into Erica's biggest flaw in this whole game has been poor jury management, and it continues again with Angelica. Angelica feels very betrayed and very backstabbed by Erica because they played this game since day one together. So she's a very big character to watch because she's going to be coming into the jury with a lot of information about Erica's game. The person who knows the most about Erica's game other than Erica is Angelica. So she can have a lot of sway here tonight and emotions will be high. So very key player to watch here. And last but not least, Erica Petrillo, who I think is right now statistically the likely winner of Big Brother Hometowns 14. Obviously, nothing is set in stone. This jury is not set. So it is a key jury to watch. She needs to hammer down these questions. Her game very similar up into Angelica's, but ultimately, she cuts lanes at 6, which I don't think was a great move. She cuts AJ at 5, great move, but kind of hurt AJ's feelings. At 4, she cuts Danielle, which is the right move. And that's a big resume booster, but the problem is the jury didn't necessarily love it at the time. They thought it was a bad move to not just cut Angelica and just guarantee your spot at the final 2. And she really needs to highlight that move tonight. Be like, no, I took a risk in cutting Danielle, knowing I didn't have a guaranteed slot at the final 2. And likely she's still to be there. So she needs to highlight that because it's likely that her and Ryan will be the final 2 tonight. And, I think it's very key that she needs to explain her game and why she was cutthroat, because that's going to be the biggest downfall to her game. This jury is very upset with her. So that is her, Ryan's biggest point to hammer home is why his physical gameplay outweighs, his cons and his social and strategic game. Erica needs to explain why her game should override her poor jury management. Daniel is mad at her for the way that she sent him out. Courtney's mad. Danielle was mad for a little bit. Angelica will be mad. AJ's upset. She has some people to win over. Ultimately, the jury is much higher on her game. But jury management is crucial. It doesn't matter how good your game is. If you piss off the jury, there's nothing more you can do about it. So very key for her tonight to be hammering home those points. Be interesting to see who wins this final HOH because it could be important. If Erica's to win and is to evict Angelica, which it could be a game-winning move for her because people have seen those two as super tight the entire time and no one thinks Erica will cut Angelica. Could be a winning move for her, but also on the flip side, Ryan will finally get his wish in surviving an eviction, and now that's another thing that he can tout on his resume as, hey, you had the vote to send me home and you didn't do it, and I'm still here. And that's the one thing that Ryan does not have to his game, has not survived an eviction. He has solely relied on comp wins to still be here. But if Ryan is to win the final HOH and bring Erica, it only furthers his physical gameplay above everybody because Erica, has 2 wins to her name, the HOH at 8 and the veto at 4. Hopefully she can get a 3rd win tonight by winning the final HOH. But lots to pay attention to. This is not a clear victory either way, so be on the lookout. The finale is starting in about 30 seconds, so head on over there to the Facebook to watch the finale live. It will start off with part 3, then we'll go to the sole vote to evict, and then our final 2 will plead their cases to win. We will see you there. Thank you for tuning in this entire season. Couldn't have done it without you. But that is the last time I'll be saying thanks for tuning into Morning 2 with CLC. We'll be back next season for everything BBH 15. But for now, bye.